guys, welcome to another episode of A Drum's Guide 2. So today I have a question from John Huff. John Huff is a wonderful drummer who has his own podcast, actually, and it's called the John Huff Podcast. He basically interviews drummers and musicians, and he is a thoroughly wonderful, wonderful man. He also happens to support Arsenal, so we were instant friends. As soon as I met him online, I was like, oh, we can be friends. So he's great. He's a touring drummer and he's wonderful. So he has asked me, what are the top 5 things that I would suggest to work on as an aspiring pro? Which is hilarious to me because he is an absolute professional, but I totally get where he's coming from with this, because sometimes, you know, you don't really know what to work on. I know that I was like that coming up. I knew that I wanted to be a professional more than anything in the world. I just didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what the level was that I had to be at. I didn't know what skills I needed to work on. I knew that I had to be able to play the drums, but past that I kind of was like, and then what? So I put together what I feel are the top 5 things that you can work on as an amateur, a semi-professional going into a professional kind of status. So let's start. So number 1 is absolutely 100% working with a clique, and that seems really obvious. We're drummers. Our whole thing is timing. Let's face it, that's literally what we're there for, is to hold a band together, keep time, and to make it feel good, basically. So the idea of working to a clique in hindsight is incredibly logical, but you know, at the time maybe you don't know that, and I would say absolutely work to a clique. Everything that you play it to a clique. I know that I had this when I was younger, especially playing in bands. The clique was kind of seen as the enemy, and I remember doing recording sessions with bands, and it was like, no, we don't play to a clique. No, we're proper musicians. You don't play to a clique as a proper musician. And it's that it's not an old school way of looking at it, but I think there's a lot of fear there, and actually playing to a clique is a wonderful thing. I think that there's this thing of, if you haven't done a lot of work with the clique, then it can sometimes sound like you're playing to a clique, which probably sounds silly. But the whole thing with the clique is, how many times can I say the clique? Is you need to sound like you're not playing to it. You need to make it sound natural, as if it's not there at all, but you're so solid and connected with it that it's not even an issue. And I went from feeling like the clique was an enemy of mine that I was fighting against, to one where it's like my friend, and I feel like that now. I love the clique because I know that no matter what's happening, I have this thing that I can come back to, and it makes sense, and it's consistent, and I love a bit of consistency. And yeah, I think it's just a really amazing thing if you can really nail playing to click. The other interesting thing that happens, which is worth mentioning, your timing gets better. Again, sounds very obvious, and it is, but if you don't think about it, you wouldn't think about it. Your timing gets better. So not all the gigs that I play are on click. I mean, at the moment, the majority of them absolutely are. But when I'm not, my sense of time, my inner clock, is so much better because I spend all this time playing with a click, that when I am without it, I know that it's going to be solid, because I just have that internal thing of, if we're setting out at this tempo, this is pretty much where it's going to stay. It might waver a little bit here and there. I'm not perfect. I'm no robot. But I to have that confidence in yourself, there's another benefit to that having that confidence that will come across in your playing, in the way that you are on stage with other musicians. And yeah, so playing with a clique, I think all round, is just one of the best things that you can do. And I'm going to say one of the best things for every single one of these, because they're all very important. So the next thing that I think is really important to work on, and again, this is something that I keep talking about, things that move the needle recently, and what I mean by that is an action or something that you do that makes a huge difference. Because we're all really good at, doing the little things that might take up a lot of time, but actually in the long run, in the bigger picture, don't make any difference really. You know, I look back at things that I've done and I just think about the amount of time that I put in, and then the sort of like what I got back from investing that time, and a lot of the time it's like, well, that was a waste. But I think that this next thing is something that is so beneficial. This, like I say, it moved the needle massively for me in my career once I sort of really took the bull by the horns, as it were, and that was playing to music. And what I mean by playing to music is playing to records, playing to songs, playing to other people's recordings. This is a twofold reason. Basically, the first thing is you learn how, well, actually there's many things about this that just makes it brilliant. Firstly, to play to music you have to listen to music, and I will always suggest that you truly listen to a piece of music before you start playing to it, because I know I've been guilty of this, where you listen to something once and you go, oh, I know how it goes, and then you play along and you're not playing the parts, you're just playing along with it. And whilst there is value in that, I think there is even more value in being able to listen to something, decipher exactly what's being played in your mind's eye, if you like, and then playing that part to it. Because what that means then is you're then, well, the aim is, the goal is to lock in with the drummer that is on that song. And then, by default, you're also locking in with the other musicians on that song. And I feel like being able to lock in with other musicians is everything. It's everything. It's why we play music. It's about connection. It's not, you know, it's not just about connection to the audience or the other musicians, but, and not as a person, but as musically, like our parts need to be integrated to create this whole, to create this song, this piece of music, this emotion that is then just given out to the audience. So I think that that's an amazing thing. And then the bonus thing with that, to do that, is to record yourself and listen back, because no matter how locked in you think you might be through your ears, because bear in mind, if you're playing and you're locking in with, you're listening and you're locking in with the other drummer on the track and the musicians and whatever, to be able to do that and then process it and listen back and understand what is happening in the moment, very difficult, nigh on impossible in my opinion. I think you can get better at it. I certainly have gotten better at it, but there's nothing beats recording it and then listening back and getting a true representation of what you're playing, how you're playing it, how you're locking in, what the sound is like, because that's a whole nother thing. Your dynamics, you know, what the feel is, what your touch is like, and the sound that you're getting out of the drum. And it's not about having high-end equipment or anything like that. If anything, it's better that you have some shoddy equipment, because if you can make that sound good, imagine how amazing it's going to sound when you've got good gear. So anyway, I'm sort of going on a tangent. Oh, and also I will say that this playing to music thing, I was told to do this from a very young age, and I will again, I digress ever so slightly, only because I was talking about this fella 2 days ago to a friend. So I used to go to blues jams when I was a kid. When I was about 15, I went to a blues jam. There was this other drummer there that wasn't me or Charisse, that was I think he's a year older than us, but the fact that there was a 16-year-old drummer there was like, what? There's other drummers that are our age? Anyway, he got up and played. Oh my God. He just blew me away. I was like, he's the most incredible drummer I've ever seen. Oh my God, he's amazing. Blah, blah, blah. So obviously got chatting because we're drummers. And he was so sweet. And I just said to him, I remember saying, how are you this good? Like, what do you do? How are you so amazing? You're just incredible, and you're 16. And like, in fact, I'm thinking about it, I think we were younger, maybe like more like 14 or 15. And what he said to me was, oh, I play along to records, and I replicate exactly what the drummer's playing. And it was like this mind-blowing moment where I was like, oh, is that what I should be doing? So anyway, I started doing that, and then fast forward maybe 3 or 4 years later, and that's when I got told that I should be recording myself and listening back. So anyway, that drummer was called, well, I knew him as Joel Grant. He's now goes by Joey Grant, and he's not only an amazing drummer, he's an amazing bass player also, and thoroughly lovely human. So I haven't seen him for a while, but yeah, he seems to be doing well, which is nice. So let's move on. The third thing that I would do if you're aspiring to be a professional from wherever you're at right now is, it kind of follows on from this last one, and that is playing with other musicians. So that is the next logical step. You know how to, or you're working on locking in with other musicians on a record, and bearing in mind, I'm sure that a lot of these musicians on the record are world class. Of course they are. They've been recording on records. Now you need to put that into a real life experience. You need to find other musicians to play with that you can do exactly the same thing. You can lock in with. I mean, for me, I say this often, covers gigs I think are amazing because you can all learn your respective parts, come together and play a song. So, get together a list of 10 songs and then you just get in a room together and play. And then you can transfer that, locking in with other people, getting the right feel, the right touch, the right parts, all of that into a real world experience. Again, I will say, record yourself, record the band, listen back, actually hear how it's sounding, recognize that not everyone is doing the work that you're doing. So some parts might not be locking in the way they are. It's not necessarily down to you. However, the golden nugget in that scenario is if you can work out a way to help gel the rest of the band together through your parts, that's like a golden skill, basically. It's very hard to do. It won't work in all situations, but if you can make it work, you will get the call. That's all I'm going to say, because that's an amazing thing to be able to do. The other bonus part of that is you're hanging out with other musicians and you're finding like-minded musicians, and that is a huge part of becoming a professional, is finding the right people to be playing with. And I don't mean right in terms of like, oh, they're right because they're doing a really good gig and they can get me somewhere or anything like that. What I mean is just like-minded people that you want to spend your time with, because it's all good and well saying, I want to be a professional musician, I want to be a professional drummer, and that was me at 14. And what I didn't understand was, of course you can be a professional. However, there are so many scenarios where you're doing a job that I've had, definitely, where I've sat there going, I'm doing what I love for my living, but I'm not enjoying it. I'm not happy. And the reason, more often than not, it's nothing to do with the music, it's nothing to do with the playing, it's to do with the people. So I think if you can find a good group of friends who are musicians almost, then you can kind of move together, and people will have different gig experiences. They might bring you in as a mate, like, we need a drummer now. Oh yeah, get them in, great, yeah, oh yeah, they're my mate, so that'll be really fun. And it makes for such a nice environment and makes you really appreciate what you're doing, and it doesn't, the personality side of things is such a huge part of being a professional, basically. And like I say, that's within yourself and within other people. And I think if you can be yourself, find people that are similar to you, then you're going to be in a great spot, basically. So yeah, playing with other musicians, not just for the music, but also for the personality and connection and like the hang, basically. I don't know why I don't like that word, the hang. I don't think I'm cool enough to say that, the hang. Anyway, right, next thing to do is, and again, sort of follows on from the last thing, learn a lot of songs. Learn a lot of songs in a lot of genres. Just get a lot of reference points, because when you go on to gigs, there's a lot of times that a musical director or another musician or an artist would say, yeah, I kind of want this to kind of sound a bit like the Beatles, like early Beatles, sort of 60s. So can we have that in mind when we're playing this song? If you haven't heard any of that stuff, you're literally like, what are you talking about? Or they might say, I don't know, I want it to sound like early 2000s R&B, kind of like that Aaliyah, Timbaland kind of thing. Like, that's the kind of vibe I'm going for. And again, I mean, that to me is quite an opposite end of the spectrum. And if you don't know what that means, it's not ideal. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world, because especially with technology these days, you can quickly look it up, have a little listen, see what you think. But I think just being able to learn so many different songs and have them in your back pocket is a really useful thing. And I think it will just, in the long run, it will always help. Even silly things like an artist might go, I really want to do a cover of Stand By Me. Cool, I know how that goes, so let's do that. What kind of style would you like it in? The fact that you can go from I know that song to how would you like it played, I think if you can eliminate as much as you can the bit of going, oh, I need to learn a song, you just make it easy for yourself in the long run. And what I did to learn a lot of songs was joined a lot of covers bands. And that was the first thing that I did. And then I would look up my favourite drummers, and then I would learn all their songs, and then I like all the back catalogue of what they've played on. Then I'd look at their influences and learn all the main songs of their influences, and then I'd look up things like I remember looking up once Rolling Stones top 100 albums, and I definitely charted the first 10 albums 100% because I've got the charts in there, and I listened to the top 100 albums because I was just like, well, if these allegedly are the top 100 albums of all time, in a rock capacity, obviously, then I should probably know them. I did it for a while with the gospel scene. I would listen to like the top 10 albums that were around at the time, like a lot of Hezekiah Walker and all that sort of stuff, even though I wasn't playing that stuff at all. But I just thought it'd be worth knowing, like having some sort of reference point. So yes, learning lots of songs is good. Sorry, this is turning into a bit of a long one. And the final thing that I would do, the fifth thing, would be to learn how to learn quickly. I think that is probably the most useful skill I've ever learned, and that I've done that by being able to listen to a song once, make a chart of it, my own chart, and play it, basically. And what I would do is do exactly that. I would listen to a song, again in this top 10 Rolling Stones top 10 albums. I would listen to the song, I would chart it as I was listening to it, and then I would go and play it. I would record myself and I would listen back and see how I did, basically, and try and lock in. So this is kind of encompassing 3 of these 5 things that I would do. Excuse me. And that has just held me in such a good place for so long, because I know I can rely on myself to learn quickly. I know that no matter what situation I get into, I can get my way out of it, hopefully in a fairly elegant fashion. I don't think I'm very elegant, but whatever. I think I can do it, and I know I can do it because I've done it. I've done it more than once when there's been a huge amount of material to learn very, very quickly, like in a matter of hours sometimes, before gigs. And it's happened, the gig has happened, and some people have been none the wiser that basically aren't the ones on stage. So I think learning to learn quickly is really good. Oh, and so the last video I did from last week about the reading thing, that's been like a bit of a game changer as well. So being able to read, very useful. But I'd say getting your own way to learn is more important, just so you can get your own workflow together. Then you can start incorporating other people's workflows into your own, so that you can just be more flexible, basically. So, what a marathon. John, I hope that's helped in some way, and I hope that's helped everyone. But thank you, John. That's a really cool question. I just hope this has been of some value. All right, I'm going to love you. I'm going to leave you. I will be back next week with another subject. Who knows what it's going to be? But I hope you're having a lovely day, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Keep being awesome, and I will see you next week. Oh, if you have any questions yourself, stick them in the comments below. All right, nice one. All right, I'll see you later. Bye, you guys. Bye.